I would like to start with a few stories and would like you to see the feelings that emerge from those stories within your heart. A 13-year-old girl finds out that her parents are getting divorced. She happens to come across some exchange of letters between the parents, and she reads through them. She realizes that she and her brother are being tossed around during the custody. She reads through the letters and she notices that both the parents are trying to toss her to each other. You keep the daughter, I'll keep the son. The other parent says, you keep the daughter, I'll keep the son. And the last letter says, okay, if you want to keep the son, you have to keep the daughter. No, this is not the first one. So the feeling, could somebody help me with the presentation here, please? Is somebody there to help me with the presentation, please? Yeah. So feeling that emerges from here was the feeling of worthlessness in that child. So the second story goes on with another boy who's 10 years old and lives in an underprivileged area where there's a war zone and it's easily available drugs and alcohol all around. His abusive uncle asks him to go bring him some cheap alcohol from the corner of the street, pour it for him in a glass without spilling a drop, and otherwise he would get a strike on the face. He's so scared that his hands are shaking and he's ever ready to be spanked or to be striked on the face. What do you think is the feeling that's coming there? These stories that I'm telling you are real life stories. And they are stories from the children that I worked with. So they're not made up stories from any storybook. So would like your attention into these stories a little bit. I would like you to feel them. So if I go back a little, I spoke to you about the little girl who found out that she was worthless. That was the first word that came out because that child told me that I feel worthless. The second case was that of a little boy who was offering or giving alcohol to his uncle and was ready to be smacked or at any time, lives in fear, always shivering. Another story, a very caring teacher enters a very punitive school. Yeah, fear. Worthlessness was the first feeling, fear was the second one. Okay, the third story. A very caring teacher enters a school of, a lot of horrendous children, very aggressive, children who've lived through war zone, which is Liari. She goes into the classroom of 40 boys, and she tries to tell them their rights. She tells them that from now on, I'm your class teacher, and nobody will ever touch you again. The boys start laughing. And one of the boys gets up and says, if you don't beat us up, we're not going to study. And then he adds in Urdu, he says, hum hain hi isi laik. What emerges from there is hopelessness. And a 6-year-old little girl is pushed down a ladder down into the basement. The basement is dark and smelly. She sits there, she slides back, tries to get hold of the wall, and she knows that she won't be able to get out of this cellar, the basement, for another 2 to 3 hours. Knowing this, she starts humming to herself. Midst the tears and the fears, she's singing a lullaby to herself because she knows she has to survive. What is the feeling that emerges from there? Yeah, the next one. Loneliness. So four young boys are on the street and they're throwing stones at a street dog. And they're laughing and they're playing. an adult, a caring adult or a sensitive adult crosses by, sits down beside those boys, calls them over, and asks the boy, "What are you doing?" The kids say, innocently, "We're playing." So, is this a play? She says, "What do you think the dog is feeling?" They say, "Animals don't feel. They can't feel pain." And then on top of that, another boy says, "Kutte ko marna sawab, jannat milegi." Beat up the dog, you'll go to heaven. What comes out of that? Yeah. Can I have the other word? Yeah. Cruelty distorted mindsets. A bunch of high school boys, they get together and target a cancer survivor teacher in school. The teacher is already very feeble, is weak, is struggling with health. But these young boys, around 16, 17, have been waiting for a chance to catch hold of him and make fun of him. So they push him into an empty room, lock the room, tear his clothes, and prance around him like an evil ritual, dancing and singing songs that are humiliating. The teacher is crying. What's emerging from here? I have to notice what is happening to the children and to the adults. A father walks into the school holding the hand of his son, comes straight to the principal's office in front of his son, who's around 13 years old. He talks to the principal and says, "He doesn't study. Beat him up so much that the skin stays with you and the bones come to me." This is an idiom in Balochi. I can't say it and pronounce it very well, but it's an idiom in Balochi कि इतना मारो कि चमड़ी तुम्हारे पास रह जाए और हड्डियां मेरे पास आ जाएं. What is happening here? This is a father. There's another teenager who's around 14 years old, and it's been noticed that he doesn't make friends with anybody. He's always a loner, sitting in corners. So this sensitive or maybe caring person, caring teacher, whoever there is, somebody is thinking about him, is noticing him all the time, cutting his wrist with a blade. He's using a sharpener blade to cut himself. At the same time, he's also abusing and torturing small animals like kittens, chicks, and pigeons. So she takes 4 months to get close to him. Finally, when she finds him sometime sitting alone, she goes and sits beside him and asks him about his life. And he opens up. And he tells the teacher that my mother left me when I was 3 years old. My father remarried and gave me away to a relative. The relative got married and gave me away to another relative. And so on and so on. He had changed 11 homes. What was happening to that boy? Lack of belonging. These are just few stories. And I just wanted to remember the sequence. That's why I had to carry this card with me. Every time I talk about these incidents, these are just few, my heart starts beating. I know these children personally. I have tried to be a caring adult in their life. And I feel really honored that I was able to intervene at a time when they needed to be saved. These abuses or these adverse childhood experiences all came from people they knew very well, from their family members, from people in their school, their teachers. They were not strangers who were inflicting these pains on them. What happens to such children? You would see them sitting around here amidst all other children, but there is an expression on their face. Please, the next slide. That says, "Before you hurt me, I'll hurt you." They don't say it. It's just written all over them. "Stay away from me. If you come close to me, I'll hurt you." That's their survival mode. And we start feeling that they're unfriendly, they're loners, or they're aggressive, or they snap, they're always angry, and so on, so on. So what happens? How do we help these children? Do we stigmatize them? Do we just accept that that's the way they're going to be? Their behaviors are designed according to the software within them, the belief system that was developed as a child. One of the belief system is this, that now I have to take care of myself, so I'm going to have a shield around me. The moment somebody comes close to me, they're like porcupines. Somebody comes closest to them, their spikes are out. Next one. This is what I found out during my experience of working with the children of Liari. I don't think even a day has gone by that I have not met somebody who's come with heavy layers of trauma and abuse on them. And it's never been processed. It's never been spoken about. They tend to take it as a norm. This happens to everybody. Anything that happens to everybody becomes a norm. But what I found out during my experience, that just being a caring adult, it's so simple that you, me, everybody can do it. Anybody who has a heart can be a caring adult and hold one child's hand and try to talk to that child. What I've made out of all these stories in my life is this. People who stay in denial of their agonizing childhood, blaming themselves, accepting that being abused is a normal part of growing up, have the greatest risk of becoming abusers and repeating the cycle. It's when they start accepting that maybe I was made for this, like that child who said, "Hum hain hi isi like." They tend to grow up and repeat the cycle. Decades back, I think almost 30 years back, there was a research that came down from Yale University telling us that there is a high potential of 1/3 abused children to grow up to be abusers. When I read that, I didn't want to believe in it. Because a part of me, a big part of me, because I as a child had a very difficult childhood myself. So a big part of me told me that it is these children who were raised amongst so much abuse and they develop so much resilience. If they find one caring adult, somebody who helps them to process, they have the biggest potential of exercising empathy. Who else can exercise empathy more than them? Empathy, courage. Two biggest ingredients for leaderships. So are we wasting leaders to become abusers? Is it possible that all the abusers that we see around us could have been saved as children and would have become empathetic leaders? Would that have changed the entire dynamic of Pakistan? It was something that I kept asking myself all the time. Yeah, next one. But what happens? The ones who embrace the truth, and obviously the children can't do it themselves. They need somebody to sit with them, to let them say their story to you. How would a child tell their story? They can talk about it, they can draw it, they can sing it, they can write about it, they can dance it, they can paint it, they can do pottery and show their expression, they can bake it, they can run it. There are several ways of expression. That's what we can help the children in. Even if we are not psychologists, even if we are not therapists, we can help them acquire activities, hobbies that have expression in them. And they start talking about their life through these mediums. This is my message to you. This is something that is the crux of my work. One abusive adult can scar the child for life. This is scar, this is not scare. Scar the child for life, setting forth the cycle of abuse, and yet another caring adult can reverse that cycle by lending a compassionate heart. By letting them know it's not your fault. This did not happen because you asked for it. This is not your fault. One thing that this caring adult actually does is to let them see the bigger purpose of life. If we can talk to the children and let them see that all these adverse childhood experiences that you've had were preparing you for a bigger purpose in life, that's when they start looking far beyond. Really? Am I the chosen one? Am I so special that I went through all this and now I have to do something really big? Because you and me, nobody can take away their pains. And we can't promise them that this will never happen to them again. We can't do that. There's too much trauma all around us. What we can do is give them a purpose. Once they are able to see that purpose, it's like a revelation. Not just for the child, but even for the one who's talking to them. That's what happened to me. I found a purpose in them, and they found a purpose talking to me. For me, it was like as if, you're going in a cave, and I can see, inscriptions written on a cave, and I have a candle, but I can read one inscription at a time. Suddenly, when you see your bigger purpose, the whole cave is lit up. And you can see the entire story written on inside the cave. But when you look at the story, at least that's what I felt, that this is half my story. This is my life story. This is my past to present. And now I am ignited to write the rest of the story and complete this book, which is from the present to the future. So if we tell this to the children, that what has happened in your life was not your fault, but what from now on you can complete your story by writing your story yourself. That gives them a total different perspective towards the trauma they've gone through. They start looking at all their adversities as opportunities. Actually, I've seen children actually being thankful for what they went through. Gratitude comes in. They're able to forgive themselves, they're able to forgive their abusers, but one big thing that happens is they find the courage to stand up and talk about it. I'm standing here and talking about it, I'm nervous. Really, I'm telling you, I'm always nervous talking about the stories of my children because I feel maybe I'm opening them up. I feel very responsible. But if I put up one of the child over here, they are so confident when they relate their stories, and they feel so proud that they have found a purpose in their life and they're moving ahead. So I would just want to encourage everybody. It's a very, very simple thing to do, is to become a caring adult. It's as simple as that. Just lend out your hand to one child. That's it. Just one child. Being able to talk, give the child some space, help the child acquire hobbies that have expression, and be there to listen to them. It's like a magic pill, literally. And it lights up our life, and you just forget everything. You're so involved with them that you forget about what happened to you. You're ready to forgive everybody, and you're ready to move on. So it's done magic on me, and I would love that to happen to all of you.